I would say the village starts off quite compact. There's not a huge amount to do, but as you go through these significant story moments, it really does begin to open up and actually becomes quite a sprawling, quite a vast area.
Lycans and gentlemen, we thank you for waiting. And now let the games begin.
Hello and welcome to Rock, Paper, Shotgun and my favourite thing in. This is where I, Colm Ahern, chat to one of the lovely RPS staffers about a spang new video game they've been playing, and I get them to tell me about their favourite thing in it. In some cases, they'll have to think long and hard about their choice because the game they've been playing might have been that great, while other better games will give them multiple things to pick. RPS's Ed Thorn has worked his way through a nondescript part of Europe in order to give you his verdict on one of 2021's most anticipated games, Resident Evil Village. It may come as a surprise to some that there is actually more to this game than just a tall lady. I know people are curious to know more about Resi 8, so I've asked Ed to chat to me about the game and specifically the one aspect of it that he enjoys more than anything else. So Ed, what is your favourite thing in Resident Evil Village?
My favourite thing in Resident Evil Village is the village itself, and that being the hub world. And it's just filled with all sorts of things to do. There's chests all over the shop, there's puzzles, and I think in particular one thing that really impressed me was after doing significant bits of the story, you come back to this village, this hub world, and certain aspects of it will have changed. You might encounter a new fearsome enemy, suddenly a passageway may have opened up, or you may even encounter some creatures, and by creatures I mean chickens and pigs, which you can kill for food, and you can give that back to this guy called the Duke. He's the big shopkeeper, and he can make you meals which will increase your stats.
So in between these story bits that you mentioned, and we'll keep it vague, we won't go into spoilers or anything like that, but in between those sections you always go back to the village and the village will have changed to some degree.
Yeah, that's it. So after these story bits, you'll go back to the village and the village will look the same most of the time, but you may have come back after these moments with a tool, for example, a key. And, before you've done that story bit, you may have encountered certain doors and you're like, oh, okay, maybe, I can't seem to go through that. I'll have like a special symbol on it. And then after you've done this story bit and you've got this key, all of a sudden you've got these new passageways that open up to you. And that village, which may have felt fairly compact at the start, suddenly begins to open up as you progress, and as you do these more significant story moments, that only increases.
How big is the village, would you say? You're talking about the Metroidvania-ness of it and back and forthing from one part of the village to the other. So would you say that you spent a lot of time doing that?
I would say the village starts off quite compact. There's not a huge amount to do, but as you go through these significant story moments, it really does begin to open up and actually becomes quite a sprawling, quite a vast area. I wouldn't say I spent a huge amount of time back and forthing. This isn't going to be, you're not going to spend hours backtracking and finding new areas. And for me, it didn't become tedious. It's quite a natural progression of finding these things in story moments, going back to the village, and it often becomes quite intuitive. You remember certain bits which you couldn't open up before, and all of a sudden you now can. So you kind of automatically gravitate towards these things that you can suddenly unlock. I didn't find that I spent ages backtracking to find these areas. They always were quite sort of easy to pick out. I guess there were, on occasion, you're trying to rely on your map and you're trying to find a way to get there, but it never felt tedious or boring or painful to me. It was always exciting to explore and to see it open up.
Is it worth it going back and opening up these treasure chests and doing these extra puzzles? Basically, is the reward worth the risk of going back to an area where a massive monster has now popped up?
So yeah, I think for the most part, these treasure chests were worth going back for, because they may contain new, powerful weapons. which are always exciting. There's not a huge arsenal in Resident Evil Village, so when you do pick up a new weapon, it's always quite an exciting feeling because you feel like it's quite a rarity, really. Sometimes these chests may contain weapon parts. Again, always handy when you've got werewolves coming at you from left and right. But often I found the chests contained, treasure, things you can sell to the shopkeeper for a pretty hefty sum, and that money you can then spend again on weapon upgrades and just ammo and herbs and things which will help you survive in this world, which maybe isn't the most welcoming.
How would you compare the openness of the village versus the more linear nature of the bulk of the game?
The village, as we've said, acts as a hub world, and it splits out into 4 main areas, each with the big baddie, I suppose. So I'd say the village is quite intricate and there's a lot to untangle, and it's quite sort of open worldy. I think the first zone which you visit at Lady Dimitrescu's castle, it feels quite similar in a way. I think the way that you explore it is quite linear, but you untangle it over time. More areas open up as you get certain bits. It's quite self-contained.
It's reminiscent to the police department or the mansion in earlier Resident Evils.
Yeah, it felt quite classic, and it looks stunning. And there's plenty of little puzzles to do and basements to explore and hidden passages and all these things. I thought that first area was brilliant. But I think for the second, third, fourth areas, they're just a lot more linear. There's less unpicking. You're not going through these areas finding loads of secret passages and loads of puzzles to do. They do just feel more sort of set piecey. That's not to say they're less complex, because there's still a lot to do there. They're just maybe not quite as vast as the village or the castle. I will say that the third and fourth areas were slightly weaker, perhaps a little bit more action-oriented. The second area, though, I think for the both of us, we felt the same way. It really was special. It felt like a modern horror game. We can't dwell on it too much.
Yeah, sadly we can't. All that bit is embargoed.
But that really is excellent. I think you will enjoy that if you're a fan of getting spooked out properly. But yes, I think the openness of the village is excellent, and I really enjoyed going through it, working my way through it, finding all the secrets and all the loot.
Thanks very much for chatting with me today, Ed. And if you, dear viewer, would like to check out Ed's full thoughts on Resident Evil Village, then be sure to have a read of his written review of the game on rockpapershotgun.com. Thanks very much for watching, you absolute star. We hope to see you again soon as we learn more about people's favourite things in video games. But most importantly, if you're to remember anything, remember this. For all of your PC gaming needs, keep it on rockpapershotgun.com.